catching the flight from Montevideo to Buenos Aires in Argentina, so we'll see another country. Like a 40-minute flight, so it's very short actually because it's very near the two capital cities of Uruguay and Argentina. So yeah. Heading to Buenos Aires from Montevideo, and this is the plane we'll be taking. It looks really small. On the flight from Montevideo to Buenos Aires, and luckily the service agent in Montevideo gave me the extra row because the airport is quite big, as you can see here. And also the view is very nice, so I'm very grateful that he gave me the window seat and also the exit row, because this is like flying in business class even though you're flying in the airport. And we're heading to the city center by the bus. And the good thing about the bus here in Argentina is that they take credit card, not like in Brazil and Uruguay. So yeah, you have to save a little bit of money while you're traveling. City center of Buenos Aires, and it really gives the vibes of New York City or like many big cities around the world. But yeah, it's quite cool to see this city in South America because it looks really modern and really good vibes. Our first spot of the place that we'll visit in Buenos Aires, and it's actually very nice, and let's see if it's very crowded to enter this site. Fortunately, we had to wait until 5:40 to go to that site because you need to book in advance. So now I'm heading to another place. Yeah, we're gonna try the subway to head to that next place. So the good thing about here is that they take credit cards, not like in Brazil. In Brazil, you have to buy the card of the metro system and the bus, but then it's very hard to buy that card in advance. So that's why I took Uber a lot. But then here it's good that the public transportation system accepts credit cards and makes it easier to travel. Machine, and then we're gonna board the train. So when you see the train station, it somehow really reminds you of New York City. Stop today, which is the Casa Rosada, which used to be the presidential building in Argentina. So unfortunately today is closed, but then it's still good to have a look from outside. So we just witnessed the guards walking out of the building right here, which is quite cool, and I think very lucky to be here at that moment because not every day you'll get to see this. It's very breathtaking inside, but then we have to be silent. Outside of the cathedral, so the outside looks like this, but I think the inside of this cathedral is actually more breathtaking than the outside. So yep, now we're heading to the next place, which is called the Central Cultural Burgess, which is the place for all placing all the artworks in Buenos Aires. And first impression is that this really gives me the vibes of the Louvre Museum in Paris and also the Art Museum in London. So yeah, it's quite cool to see this now. Next stop, which is the Holocaust Museum. So it's actually very interesting that they have this kind of museum also here in Argentina. So I think it's worth to have a look. Interesting to actually see this because who knew that also Argentina had the communist past as well.
Decir, le evitan la respuesta, sale enojado, vuelve con una pistola y le dispara a un funcionario de la embajada alemana. El hijo nacimos es nuestra oportunidad. El título por la semana.
Interesting that in this museum they have AI robot that you can actually ask questions like this. Hello, what's your name? but it replies to you in Spanish. So when you ask in English, it will reply to you in Spanish. So quite interesting that AI can actually work in museum like this. Never seen it before. So yeah. To the first place that we wanted to visit today, which is called the Palacio Barolo, because you need to actually book in advance. But luckily they have a spot in today afternoon. So yeah, I'm gonna see it right now.
¿Qué pudo haber pasado, no? But when the original sculpture was bring by Palermo, van a ver que hay algo que está faltando ahí. A ver si pueden adivinar qué es. If you...
To the fourth floor, so it's quite interesting that this floor is like the place where you have transit from hell to heaven, according to the tour guide. So yeah, because you cannot go to heaven directly, because if you go to heaven directly, you can fall down to hell, so to hell directly. So yeah, it's quite interesting, the concept of this building. We finally made it to the top, which they call heaven of this building. So the interesting part of this building is that you can actually get a very good view of Buenos Aires, and also you can drink over there. There's a tiny bar, but I think for this building it's actually good to join the guided tour, because you get to understand the history of this building in a much better aspect and a good view as well. So yeah, enjoy it a lot, although it's a bit tiring to climb from the 14th floor to the 20th floor, but yeah, worth the experience. This is the very top of this building, so it's very interesting that you can actually go to the very top of this building if you join the guided tour.
Por favor. I need you please to sit down.
Sunset. Yeah.
Once again, this is a reference from the Divine Comedy, because when Dante Alighieri reaches heaven, he meets God that he shocks itself with a strong light, and we had a strong light, so strong that it reaches La Plata River, and when the
building that we just finished viewing, actually it's quite good, so I'm very glad that I did this guided tour. So yeah, now I'm gonna get some dinner and then we'll call it a day before I explore Buenos Aires for the next few days. The authentic Argentinian steak, which is medium, and with the pasta, since I miss Asian food, but then yeah, can't wait to eat. Argentinian steak is when it's medium, you can see the blood come out. So yeah, quite glad that I had this. So yeah, I'm very glad I came to Argentina and tried the authentic steak. Room that I got in Buenos Aires, and surprisingly it's quite cheap. It's only around 200 Hong Kong dollars for this room, and it got its own toilet. So I think it's not too bad to spend $200 for one night to sleep in a nice room like this. First stop of today, which is the National Congress Building in Buenos Aires. But let's see if we can do the guided tour today. Yeah, because today is quite cold and maybe it's still closed because it's a Monday. We can go inside right now. We have to wait until 1:30, so I'm planning to go to another site first before coming back and hopefully getting a good guided tour for the National Palace Congress. Our second stop of today, which is the Basilica Church. So this church is quite special as it's quite in color. It's different from the one we went to yesterday, so let's have a look what's inside. Yep, so the inside of that church is actually quite interesting, quite similar to the architecture of the one that we had saw yesterday. So yeah, now we're heading to the next stop, which is the National Library. We're now outside the National Library, and then we will head inside for a few minutes before we head back to the Parliamentary building. Inside the National Library, but the only unfortunate part is that we couldn't see inside. We can only see inside from this angle. To borrow books and to see inside, we couldn't go further. So yeah, this is all we can do. But the interior is actually quite impressive. Outside the library, it looks really impressive from the outside as well. But yeah, it's unfortunate that we couldn't see the library in detail, but then oh well, I guess it's still worth to pay a visit over here. It's the guided tour of the Congress building. So what's interesting is that you cannot actually film inside, you can actually only take pictures. So I'll show the pictures in my vlog later on. But what's interesting is that after the tour, they'll give you a leaflet about this Congress building, and to remember that you've been in this trip. So I think it's quite cool that they actually let you visit this building, but then you have to wait for a while and also register so that they will let you inside. And also the guided tour in this building is free. So yeah, it's quite It's in Argentina, which is their grilled chicken with cheese sauce. So yeah, it's quite different from the famous steak, but then I would like to try something else before leaving this country. Trying the famous dessert, which is the leche flan, and then I can't believe it's included in this 13,000 pesos menu, which is quite cheap because in Hong Kong or in most part of Europe you couldn't get a meal at this price. Now in the National Monument of Argentina, and this one looks like the one in Washington, but it's in Argentina. And also when you go to this street, it really reminds you of Times Square in New York City, so it's really cool to see this. The famous street called Caminto in Buenos Aires. Yeah, this street is one of the most colorful streets in Argentina. Street is actually a very good place for lunch or dinner, and also buying cheap souvenirs, cheaper than in downtown Buenos Aires. But then they told me that if you come here by yourself and you're a foreigner and you cannot speak Spanish, things might get stolen. But then I think it's actually not true, because here it actually feels very safe. Yeah, so I think this street is actually very interesting, because it used to be a, how do you say, not a very famous place, but then now it's quite nice. Yes. We're leaving Argentina to go to Chile, and I can't wait to try the pork ribs of Argentina and pasta, since I miss food from home a lot.